Hey everybody, Better for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Top 5 Friday. Every Friday we get together and we have a look at the top 5 something, normally to do with Blood Bowl. Now, I hope you all had a very wonderful Christmas. This is our first Top Friday after Christmas and our last Top Friday of the year, which is pretty cool. Now, we're going through alternative miniatures at the moment, looking at teams in Blood Bowl and big guys in Blood Bowl, and putting together some of the best third-party alternatives for your team. Because the Games Workshop models, for example this one here, are pretty good, but sometimes the price, the availability, or the style just doesn't work for you. So we're going through, and with your help on the comments every Monday, we're putting together our top 5 alternatives. So there was a ton of suggestions for Ratogers across the various places, as there should be. So I've kind of curated this list towards what you guys have said and maybe left out some of the normal looking ones. Well, that's not true. There was a couple that just looked exactly the same. We're going to leave those out, and I've sprinkled in something slightly different for you instead. Anyway, onwards to my top 5 Ratogers. Number 5 is the Giant Mole from the Kraken Fantasy Stadiums. No, that's garbage. Let's try that again. Number 5 is the Kraken Fantasy Stadiums Mole Rat. Giant Mole Rat. I think they've probably got a better name for it. They might not. Now, this is live at the moment on my mini factory. It's STL only. They've got a few merchants that have picked it up, so you will be able to get prints of these around and about. But I wanted to include this in the list because it is a cool alternative to Skaven. Now, we saw this the other week. They've put together this massive dungeon, not Kickstarter, but Frontier, they call it, on my mini factory, where it's just STL only. The dungeon's awesome, but they've included a mole rat team as well, because the whole idea is that it is the Mole King's stadium, or dungeon, and the Mole King has got mole players. And the reason I've included this on the list is because it is a very cool alternative, but this is the placeholder where I say, before we move on to the other third-party ones, there's so many models out there that you can get that will fit your style of team. So whether you're playing Skaven, we've got the Games Workshop team, you want Ratoga to fit with it, fine. If you've got a different team, you're using something else as Skaven, you've kit-mashed your Skaven, using this mole team as your Skaven team. There's a ton of options out there for you, and that's what I wanted to kind of get across, and this I think is a really good way to kind of demonstrate it. But the other cool thing about Ratogers, they're big, they're frenzied, and they need a tail. That's it. So your flexibility, with using any kind of model is awesome. I guess it doesn't really need to have a tail. If it's something tentacly, Skaven are kind of mutation-y, so you could get something with loads of tentacles and use that to represent the tail. You could use the Kroxigor model, your favourite Kroxigor model. I actually quite like the idea of that, given how Skaven and Lizardmen have got this kind of like historical enmity between them. Actually, them capturing and having a Kroxigor, this is the BruteFun Kroxigor, on their team would be a really cool thing to have. So top 5 is a bit of a cop-out, but think outside the box. Use a giant mole. Use a Kroxigor. There's a ton of cool stuff out there. With a Skaven team, your big guy is your big guy. Having a tail helps, but it's not necessary. Anyway, number 5, the Big Mole. Number 4. Now, this is a Ratoga I had not seen before. So awesome. This is one thing I'm really loving about these top 5s, is you guys are like, hey, have you seen this? And I'm like, ooh, more fun stuff to print. This is an STL only. It's by Manuel Boria, and it is just a really cool looking Ratoga. So a couple of you suggested this one, and the big claw that looks straight out of 40k orcs works so well with rats. With Skaven, they've got that Clan Scryer kind of weird mechanical make stuff work with warpstone, and kind of the style of a Ratoga is it's a big mutated Skaven basically, right? It's a big mutated Skaven. Normally you've got mechanical, biomechanical warpstone bits put on, and this works absolutely perfectly. Now, I like how they've actually got a picture of the model printed out as well with some other cool Skaven models, but I thought it was a really great sculpt. I have no idea if you can pick this up and get it printed by someone. I'm sure it's on Etsy. Everything seems to be on Etsy. We're on Etsy. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but it's a very cool model, so thank you very much for flagging that one up to me. That is Ratoga by Manuel Bora. That's a really cool one. I've not seen it before. It's got the classic Skaven line. It looks very much like the Island of Blood guy. I'm on board. Number 3, it's the Grygor from Grebo. So Grygor is available from their website. It's euros, and it's 20 of them. And it's a great model. Oh, they've got a little size bit down there. That is incredibly helpful. Anyway, we're going to click this button because this is what happens when you click this button. And you can do this, which makes this very much fun. I think there's a thing on the top of my screen there. Anyway, I've got this model somewhere. I ordered it as soon as it came out because I thought that is a very cool alternative sculpt. So far we've seen use whatever you want to style with your team. We've seen a really cool take on the classic Ratoga, but with kind of a litheness to him and this agility. Now we've got the classic Grebo chunk, which I think they are absolutely brilliant at doing. So Grebo kind of had this aesthetic of, if it was in a video game, how would it look? If this was an MMO, how would it look? And they've absolutely knocked it out of the park. Now Grebo do insane sculpts, but they also do really good production. Like really good production. So I absolutely love this. I love this model. It is a big one. I think it comes on a 40mm base. Is that right? Is that a 40mm base? Looks like a 40mm base. I remember being like impressed and really pleased with the size there, and you can see that's actually the production model and the size of the model there as well. So it's what, 4 centimeters high. I was really impressed with it. It was one of the kind of first models I actually picked up from Grebo after their Kickstarter because they dropped it, and I was like, this is cool. I'll have one of those, and I did, and I was glad. So that's the Grebo Grygor. Number 2, it's BruteFun. So BruteFun has done an Underworld team, and within that Underworld team, there is a chunky boy of a Ratoga that I really, really, really love. So it's got all the classic Ratoga vibes. I think if we scroll through the pictures, you can see the different angles, right? It's got that patchwork skill element to it. You've got kind of like the skinny legs, the big bulky bits, and a thing I really love about this, because everything we talked about, huge Skaven fan. Skaven love chucking warpstone in places, using it to mutate things and make them bulky and terrifying, and this kind of aesthetic fits in perfectly with Skaven. It fits in even better with Underworld, which makes sense because this goes with BruteFun's Underworld team. And as you kind of scroll through the pictures, you can see it. You've got the patchwork skill element to it, you've got the massive hands. It's just a terrifying beast. But it's BruteFun, so it's got a ton of excellent details on there. You've got shackles, you've got chains. This is one of BruteFun's better big guys, which is saying a lot, because you guys need to check out the Ratoga with ball and chain that he does, because it is just absolutely outrageous. Now, the other thing I really love about this model is that it comes with several variants. There you go, almost timed that perfectly. The right hand has got a fist with spiky warpstone in it. It's also got a blade. Like, it's actually got a blade on it. And the head, which you can't quite see in the photo very well, has got this cool lantern on it, but that has also got a warpstone horn. Or it's got a normal head. Again, you've got that lantern just kind of between the head and the pauldron. So you've got a horn head or no horn head. You've got a blade fist or a spiky fist to go with it. Oh, it's got a plain hand as well, even more variants, which is really cool. I hadn't seen the plain hand. I was just either going to be spike or warpstone fist. Why would you want a plain hand when you can have a warpstone fist? Anyway, BruteFun, it's available for pickup at STL, $3.50 if you've got a printer. If you don't have a printer, this is going to be up on our shop early next week. So we're printing BruteFun's models now, and they're just beautiful. They are beautiful. I absolutely love them. This is going to be available on the shop. And if you are going to pick it up on the shop, check the comments below, the description, comments, probably both. We'll do a discount code for this model for January, and it's probably going to be top 5 Roga. So if you want to pick up a 3D print of this one, you can do so from our website below. But it's BruteFun, right? The sculpts are great. and it's a really good chunky model. But that brings us to number 1, which is Punga. And specifically, we kind of got to call this out when it comes to Punga. They've got 4 or 5 really great Ratoga models. So it kind of pushed them to the top here for a couple of different reasons. They're accessible as STLs, you can buy them straight from their site in really well cast resin, and the variety of Ratogas that they do for Blood Bowl is monstrous. You've got this guy who is my personal favorite, and if you've watched the Bonehead Championship, this is the model that we used in the Skaven team to be our Ratoga. It's just my absolute, it's just one of my favorites. Is it my favorite Ratoga? It's up there, right? It's big, it's brutal, you've got the big hand. It barely has a tail, actually, to be fair, and they don't do a very good chance job of like showing different angles to it. But $9 for the STL, which is more, comes pre-supported. I got it back when, was I part of the Patreon? Yeah, and I've got it in resin from the various Kickstarters they do too. But when it comes to Punga, you've got this big guy, and you've got loads of detail. It's a beautiful sculpt. It's got that real big chunkiness to it. It's got, it's kind of like bolder, simpler to paint lines for the Punga team, which I think is really good. This is a doddle to paint. This is an absolute contrast delight. I painted up mine in about 7.5 minutes. No, that's not true. Probably spent like 3 hours making the orange look orange, because that's orange for you. But it's a great model. But the point is here that they've got this big guy. They've got the other Ratoga with the claw hook, different sculpt. They've got the Ratoga from their Underworld team, the Undersea Rats. They've just got a huge amount of choice. They're reasonably priced. They're pre-supported. You can buy them from their store. You can, I don't know, I assume you can get them on Etsy or something. But I just love this guy. And a massive part of the tiebreaker here is that we used him in our series. And I use him in my Blood Bowl team. And he's just my Ratoga. And that is why I've swayed this one to number 1. But the kind of point of this list is this is probably the best positional to buy models for, because there's so much out there. Like I said, you don't really need a Ratoga. If you've got a Minotaur or an Ogre model that you really like, use that. If you've got a Kroxigor you really like, use that. If you've got a big undead guy, use that. The cool thing about Skaven and Underworld is you've got a big guy, and a big guy is what you need. You can't use a Troll as a Ratoga, but you can use almost everything else. And it's just so cool that there's all this flexibility. The Punga ones are great. If you don't want that, then BruteFun is brilliant. If you want something a little bit leaner, then you've got that Manuel Boria one. If you want something chunkier and video gaming, you've got the Grygor Games one. And then if you want a Mole Rat, you can get a Mole Rat, or you can use that Kroxigor. Ratogas are just a brilliant positional. A brilliant big guy. I maintain that they are the best big guy in Blood Bowl 7s. They're probably not the best big guy in standard Blood Bowl. That I still maintain that's probably the Minotaur. But in 7s, the Roga is amazing. The speed, the power, the skill set is just so good. And there's a ton of great models to choose. And there's Forge World. Being in the market for a Ratoga is awesome, and I guarantee you're going to end up with more than one. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up, guys. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.